What should we call the sea between the Korean Peninsula, Japan, and Russia? Should we call it the East Sea or the Sea of Japan? The name East Sea has been in use in Korea for the past 2,000 years. However, this fact was ignored when the 1929 meeting of the International Hydrographic Organization adopted the name Sea of Japan in the first edition of Limits of Oceans and Seas. At that time, Korea was under Japanese colonial rule and had no representation at the IHO. Furthermore, the UN has recommended simultaneous use of different names when countries sharing a geographical feature do not agree on a common name. Japan, however, continues to disregard this recommendation, insisting on Sea of Japan as the only legitimate designation for the area. Then, why should the name East Sea be used in the international community?
In our review of this matter, let us turn to historical texts for guidance. The two seminal works that document the period of the Three Kingdoms use the name East Sea when describing historical events that occurred around 50 BC. The East Sea is inscribed on the stone of King Gwanggaedo, erected in the early 5th century, and an outstanding reliable record of the time. The name East Sea is also clearly indicated on the Paldo Chongdo, the map of the 8 provinces of Korea published in 1530, as well as on a number of Chinese maps of that period. This compelling evidence shows that the name of East Sea has been commonly used not only in Korea, but also in all other Northeast Asian countries since 2,000 years ago.
There's a lot of Chinese historical documents, and after we examined these documents, we found that during the past 1,500 years, the East Sea was the main name of this sea area.
The Korean national anthem begins with the word Donghae, meaning East Sea. Korean people have a particular bond with the name East Sea, just as they do to Korea and Seoul. We have insisted in the international community on the need to give due consideration to the name East Sea, as it has been used for more than 2,000 years by 70 million Koreans. Supporting this view, many scholars have acknowledged the need to simultaneously use both names.
And that to use both until there's a final resolution seems to me to be a quite reasonable policy.
It seems to us that it is necessary to use both names in the same time. The name East Sea and the name Sea of Japan, respecting the opinion of both countries.
As for the people of Japan, what did its people call this sea in the past? Interestingly, historical documents reveal the fact that even the Japanese referred to this area as the Sea of Joseon before the 20th century. As you may know, Joseon is an ancient Korean kingdom.
As the term Sea of Japan first appeared in the 1602 document Mappo Mondo, written by Matteo Ricci, the name East Sea predates it by more than 1,600 years. It should also be noted that the Sea of Japan was a name imposed by Westerners. Then how have the Japanese people actually been referring to the sea? In a map of Asia published in Japan in 1794, as an appendix to the ancient document, A Report of Russia, the name Sea of Joseon is indicated, not the Sea of Japan. The same is true of a simplified map of Japan's periphery published in 1809, as well as a newly edited world map published in 1810 by astronomer Takahashi Kageyasu. These maps were all official maps of Japan. In all, 18 maps dating back to the 18th and 19th centuries carry the name Sea of Joseon. It is evident that the sea was called by various names, including Sea of Joseon, until the 19th century.
What about the rest of the world? How did the world refer to the sea in question before the decision by the IHO in 1929?
From the 17th to the 19th century, Westerners used various names for this sea, including the Sea of Korea, the Sea of Joseon, the Eastern Sea, the Oriental Sea, the Sea of China, and the Sea of Japan. Among all these various names used during this period, those containing references to Korea are most frequently found on maps. The Portuguese cartographer Manuel Godinot's 1615 A Map of Asia, and Lazar's work of the same title published in London in 1840, both used names with a reference to Korea for this sea area. These maps and documents clearly show that when naming this sea, designations containing a reference to Korea were more widely accepted than other names. Thus, the names East Sea or Sea of Korea were internationally used, not designations used only by Koreans.
What then, in spite of all the historical evidence, is the logic of the Japanese government for insisting on the use of the name Sea of Japan? One of their main arguments is that because the Japanese archipelago divides the Pacific Ocean into the East Sea and the rest of the Pacific, the sea should be named Sea of Japan. Japan insists that this rationale is what gives the Gulf of California and the Andaman Sea their respective names. But is there really any basis for this reasoning in the international community?
We would turn your attention to the fact that the Tasman Sea, which is separated from the South Pacific, carries the name of the island to the west, not New Zealand to its east. The Sea of Okhotsk, which is separated from the North Pacific, does not carry a name derived from the Kamchatka Peninsula lying to its east. As in these cases, when naming seas, it is the widely accepted practice to name it after the land to its west. This is how the Gulf of California and the Andaman Sea were named. Therefore, there is not enough basis for Japan's main argument.
Moreover, the name Sea of Japan is an anomaly because it is the only case on the world map of a sea area being named after a particular country when its coastline is shared by more than 3 countries. In these similar cases, waters should carry names independent of any bearing to a particular country. The North Sea in Europe, surrounded by a host of neighboring countries in the region, was once referred to by different names by the British, the Germans, and the Danish. After the IHO recognized the term North Sea as the only legitimate term, the differences were resolved, and the name North Sea is used by all countries.
Certainly the majority, as my understanding, is that the majority of bodies of water have a name that is independent of a country that happens to lie next to them.
When there are circumstances that peoples can feel that in some way carries with it a suggestion of some sort of control or evokes a historical control, it can lead to sensitivities, of course.
The name East Sea is the most appropriate geographically and the most reasonable on historic grounds, and it is, moreover, generally acceptable. Korea will continue to seek international understanding and agreement to restore the rightful name.